Hey everyone, Chaps here. I know I've talked before about how I haven't been playing Gears much, and honestly, I haven't been gaming much. But recently, I've been enjoying Tabletop Simulator on Steam. Come to my surprise, some users even have the Gears board game modeled on there. I've had it myself physically for a few years, but it's nice being able to find it virtually. If you follow our second channel, you may have seen my recent videos discussing how to set up and play the game. And with this being video game centered content, I'm hoping to record a few playthroughs for this channel. In the meantime, I wanted to give a brief intro to Tabletop Sim, and more specifically, some things regarding the Gears board game. As I said, Tabletop Simulator can be found on Steam. It costs $20 for a license normally, or $60 for a 4-person license, but occasionally it's on sale for half price, making it more than worth it. You can also find it on third-party sites for like $6 or $7, which is awesome. That's what I did. There's only a few games included and then some paid DLC, but where it really stands out is the user-generated content. People have modded basically every game on there. It's amazing and it's all there for free. It's not as nice as physical games, but it's great if you want to try something out first before buying a physical copy. Not only that, but it lets you play things online with friends. A big caveat that I'll throw out there is that a lot of it isn't scripted and the rules aren't built in, so you really need to know how to play yourself before getting into it. It's not going to teach you how to play. But let's say you have Tabletop Sim and you want to play the Gears board game. This is the mod that I have for the Gears board game, and it's the one that I would highly recommend. When you load it up, it's going to look similar to this. But let's skip forward for a second and look at a completed board. The board is split into 3 main areas. The larger area is the main board. Basically, that's where we're going to be playing. These top 2 sections are for the characters and enemies on the left, and then the locations and tiles on the right. These are really just there for setup purposes, and you basically don't use it once you start playing. Before diving into the setup, we need to understand some of the controls. Using the center mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out, and hovering over each item here will highlight it and give you some text saying what it is. By clicking on the center mouse button, you're able to use the pan tool. While holding it down, move your mouse around to just pan around the board. Now let's move into rotation. Board Game Sim is really cool in the sense that it's actually a 3D game. Holding down the right mouse button will let you rotate in 3D space. Learning how to combine the right mouse button and the center mouse button are your keys to navigation. Next, we look at picking stuff up, and this is pretty obvious. By clicking and holding on a game piece, you're going to pick it up. You can move it around and drop it wherever you want. If you look under the piece, you'll see a slight shadow. This is helpful in determining where it will fall when you let go. When holding the piece, there's a few commands that you can do to modify it. One of the most common things is rotating. Scrolling with your mouse wheel will rotate the piece around the vertical axis. By holding Alt and scrolling, you can rotate it around one of the horizontal axes. Combining these two will let you rotate it however you want. Note the 90 degrees in the top. I have it set to snap to 90. By clicking this number, you can change the increments, but for most games, I find 90 to be ideal. So I mentioned that clicking and holding on a piece will pick it up, but what happens when you do that over a stack of items? Let's say the weapon deck here. Well, you can see that it picks up the entire stack. Clicking and holding over an item will pick up the entire stack. Even if my mouse is moving, it will pick up the full stack. You need to click and drag off that deck in order to pick something up. It needs to be rather quick, but you should get used to it pretty quickly. Eventually you'll do it without even thinking about it. Something else you may be noticing here are that the cards are automatically stacking. Some items are linked this way, so if you drop a weapon card on top of another weapon card, it will notice this and it will stack them. You don't need to be perfectly aligned, but close enough so that it picks it up. Next, you can see that we can highlight items by dragging a box over them. Click and hold to create a box, and let go to end the box. Anything being selected will be highlighted in yellow, and anything you do to those items will be done to the entire set. A common command on the keyboard is the R key. Think of this as roll or randomize. By pressing R when hovering over a die, it will roll for us. Alternatively, you could select a bunch of die. Then with those selected, simply press R and it will roll all of them for you. Remember, R stands for randomize, not roll, so we can also use it on cards. If I go to this weapon deck here, I can press R and it will shuffle. A deck is shown as shuffling when you see the cards in it rotate. Just ignore the fact that the top card didn't change here. That was just a lucky, or I guess unlucky shuffle. Here you can see that each time I shuffle, the cards are changing. This is primarily used over here on the order cards and the AI cards. These decks occasionally need to be shuffled. When that's needed, I just hover over them and tap the R key a few times. So that's randomized, but there's a few other commands that we'll care about. Let's draw an order card here, and we need to flip it over so that we can see the text. We do this by pressing F for flip. We can then use the scroll wheel to rotate it to the correct direction so that we can easily read it. I guess we could have just rotated our screen as well, but I typically try and keep the screen oriented in one direction, so I prefer to rotate the card. With it rotated, we can zoom in and read it, and if we're discarding, we simply pick it up, rotate it to the right orientation, and drop it in our discard pile. And yep, you can see that it's magnetized to the others. There can be a lot of zooming in and out to read stuff, and a quick command that you could use is Z. It will toggle between zoomed in and zoomed out and just focus on wherever your mouse is. Personally, I prefer to use the mouse wheel, but maybe some of you will like pressing Z better. Next, let's talk about your hand, or the cards that you currently have. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my current cards real quick, but okay, so now let's say I want to draw some cards. I can drag cards down here, and they'll appear in my hand. They're upside down though, so I need to press F to flip them over. That's annoying though. At the start I need to draw 7 cards, and each round I need to draw 2. That can get tedious if I have to keep dragging them down. So an easier method is to hover over the deck and press a number. In this case I want 5 more cards, so I just press 5. As you can see, it will auto-draw and flip 5 cards for me. You may have noticed that the cards in my possession also appear at the bottom of my screen. This is an easy way to quick access your cards. Unfortunately, it's not the best for the Gears board game, so personally, I just press H for hand to hide it. If you ever want it back, you can just press H again. Alrighty, so that's really most of the basics, but let's rewind a bit back to the start. We've got a blank board, let's set up this first scenario and learn a few other tricks along the way. The guy who made this mod put these awesome note cards on the table to help you follow along in case you need a refresher. It's pretty clearly labeled, but I'll walk you through some of the stuff. We're going to start by grabbing our character card and the surrounding cards. Drag them over to your space and lay them out, pulling out all of the weapons, place down the ammo tokens, and then just do whatever you want with the info sheet and figure. I'll speed up a bit here and drag a second player down just so you can see what that looks like. And with character setup done, we now need to move on to steps 3 and 4. Press R a couple of times over the weapon deck, and then do the same for the order cards. Now pick a mission. I'm choosing mission 1 here, and we're going to drag the contents out of the bag. To do this, basically just pretend that you're trying to drag the bag over to the side. With this in place, zoom in and read what enemies we need. Now we'll go up here to our enemies and start dragging down all the associated cards. While we're doing this, let's go ahead and go up to the bags and start pulling down the enemy figures. You'll see that each enemy card has 2 bags that go with it. One has figures and the other one has wound tokens. For now, just drag all of the figures down to the right spot. Note that the figures and the tokens in front of the bag are just for display. Those aren't being used. With all that in place, we'll move up here to step 5, which I guess we kind of did already. So on to step 6, let's drag the AI deck down here. We need to pull out all of the AI cards for the enemies that we're using. I find it easiest to flip and rotate this full stack rather than flipping and rotating card by card. So just start drawing cards and throwing them over to the side, and you'll notice that there's actually some physics here. It's kinda cool that you can just toss stuff over to the side. Anyway, you'll eventually find one of our 3 enemies. Place these in a separate stack, ideally all together so that they can magnetize, and once you get through all 3 enemies, continue to discard until you find the general AI cards. Now we head back over to our mission setup sheet, and down here we can see which general AI cards to use. For mission 1, it's cards 1 through 6. Go back to the deck and add these cards to your stack. Then grab the full stack, flip it over and rotate it, and place it down over on the setup sheet. Now we're moving on to steps 6 and 7, which are honestly some of the most tedious ones. They sorta suck in the physical version, but for Tabletop Sim, they really suck, especially when you have multiple levels. Luckily, mission 1 only has 1 level. So this is what we're going to do. Grab that top mission card and bring it over here. Now flip the card so that you can see the locations required. For this one, it's 2A, 9A, 12A, and 16A. We need to find these cards in the location deck. The deck is labeled 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and all the way up to 17A, 17B. Just do whatever you think is easiest and collect all of the cards that you need. It's kind of a pain. In the future, I may just use the number keys to draw a bunch of cards so that I can easily pull out the ones that I want. So with that done, move the stack that we want out of the way. Now let's repeat the process, but with the tiles in the bags over here. Starting at the top, these are separated into 1A through 12A, 1B to 12B, 13A to 16A, 13B to 16B, and then 17A and 17B are together. So again, just pull out whatever you want. Now we'll zoom out and drag all these tiles down to the main board. Oh, and we're done with these extra AI cards, so just throw them out of the way. We'll also bring down these location cards that we set to the side earlier. Go to the location deck and shuffle them by pressing R a few times. Find the tile that matches the card and place it on the board. Then place the matching card next to it. Now go get the next tile and the next card, and repeat until you have all tiles laid down and their cards next to them. Now we want to lock these items. Basically, this is going to make it so that we can't accidentally click on them or drag them when we're playing. To do this, hover over the item and press L for lock. You go down the line and do this for all of the tiles and the side cards. You'll see that now we don't have to worry about accidentally selecting them. Step 9 is the last main step, and basically it's just add figures to the board. I don't know why, but here I'm adding our characters first. Usually I like to add the locus first just to see how they're set up, but oh well. With ours in the starting place, we move to the locust. Look at the cards next to each tile. Note the number of players, and then see which locusts spawn at each E-hole. Here, with 2 players, we need 1 locust B, or a drone. According to the drone's card, he's going to take cover if cover is available. The next tile wants more drones, and yep, that's at each E-hole. The third tile wants a boomer, and so does the fourth. I forgot to bring the setup card back down, so I'm just grabbing that now. And you'll see that it only has 1 level. If there were multiple levels, you'd want to make sure that you pull out the cards for those tiles as well, and then just keep them over to the side. So let's flip this back over, and we'll see a special rule. I need to cover up the E-holes. While up here grabbing the E-hole covers, I noticed the doors. Technically, there's supposed to be a door at the exit of the last tile. I didn't normally bother getting it out, but hey, let's do it right. And speaking of doing it right, I failed us once again. The last tile is backwards. The arrow is always supposed to be the entrance. Let's press L to unlock this piece, and we'll turn it around, relock it, and place the door down. Okay, so let's get these E-hole covers. Remember, the ones in front of the bags are not grabbable. They're just there for reference. We'll go ahead and cover each of these up, and with that, I think we're basically ready to play. Oh, yeah, let's get these cards out of here. Okay, so we start by having someone draw their initial hand, which is usually 6 cards. I'm starting with 7 though because I'm Marcus, but I'm also setting up for 2 players, so I'm going to start by getting their cards. The easiest way is to go up to the order deck and press 6 to get 6 cards. Then I'm just going to move them over to player 2's spot. Now I want my cards, so I press 7. As a few other notes, we have the attack die and defense die up here. The special weapon cards are over here. And remember, these are the specific weapons. They're not the random weapon stack that's over on the left side. If you ever need a certain weapon out of this deck, I honestly find it easiest just to shuffle. Rather than digging through, just press R a bunch of times until whatever you want is on top. I found that to be easiest. Now when playing and you're using an order card, it's nice to place your card in the middle here. That way all players can see what you're doing. We can all zoom in, you can do your action, and then you can place it in the discard pile. For discarded cards, it's best to keep them face up so that they're not confused with the undrawn cards. After your actions are complete, comes the AI phase. Draw and flip an AI card, follow its instructions, and then discard it back over here. Once again, keep it face up. And basically, that's it. I do want to cycle back on the wound tokens. I missed those earlier, sorta. I don't recommend pulling those out when setting up, I just leave them in their bags. They're up here with all of the enemy figures, and as you pull them out, they'll be wound side up. That's how you want them. After an enemy dies, I just recommend putting it off to the side. Some of these have weapons on the back here, and others are blank. They don't stack very well though, so I try to avoid that. What you want to be careful of is once you've used them all and you need to reshuffle. Typically I just place them back in the bag and press R to randomize. I'm actually not sure if randomizing in the bag works, but I put them in there randomly anyways, so I guess it kinda works out. What you don't want to do is put any in upside down. If you put them in upside down, they'll come out that way, and you're not supposed to know what's on the back until after you've killed them. Also, be careful that you don't have any stacked before placing them in there. They'll come out as a stack, and that could mess you up. And then that really does it. The last 2 things I'll mention are, 1, if you have it enabled, you can flip the table, because yeah, it's kinda fun. And 2, if you flip the table, or something else gets messed up, don't forget about time controls. You have these 2 arrows up here, and they let you move forward or backward in time to revert any changes. And with that, you should now be all set up. Well, at least from a tabletop sim perspective. If you want to understand more of what all this setup meant, or if you want to actually understand the rules of the game, I've got more detailed videos about that on the second channel. Head over there to check them out. Like I said, hopefully I'll be doing some playthroughs in the future with some friends, but until then, go ahead and drop this a like if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just let me know down below. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you next time.